All right, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. This is part 7 of the Build an Instagram app series. In the last part, we started working on the edit profile. We're going to pick up where we left off. Make sure you destroy that like button, hit subscribe, get Xcode ready, and let's continue on. So like I said, in the last video, we started on edit profile. So we're going to put together more of this UI here. And what we're also going to do is we're also going to start putting together the actual profile UI. So on edit profile, I've actually got the Instagram app opened here on my device to have a reference point. So first things first, we added this save button and cancel button. So in did tap save, let's put a comment here, save info to database. And for did tap cancel, we're going to say dismiss. Let's see if autocomplete decides to work. There it is. Dismiss, animated true, and completion is going to be nil. And now we want to create the UI. So I'm going to put those subviews up here. And by the looks of what Instagram has got going on, we're going to use a table view to simplify our life in terms of creating the UI. And we're going to create it with an anonymous closure, as we usually do. Basically, it'll be a simple table view. We're going to return a table view per what we've created right there. And we're going to want to register custom cells, but let's just register a standard cell for the time being, just to make sure everything is working. This should be a cell, and we're going to say cell is the identifier. We're also going to conform to the appropriate delegate and data source up here. We're going to make sure we add this as a subview, like so. We're going to assign, we're going to assign the delegate and data source. And come to think of it, actually, we don't even need the delegate. So we're going to get rid of that. And we're also going to get rid of this up here. Each of the table view rows is going to have a text field and a label that the user can enter. I'm just going to add comments in here so we can separate out our code and organize it a little bit better. So we want number of sections. We're going to return 1 for now. We're going to say number of rows. We'll return 0 for now. And we are going to want cell for row at index path. And in here, we are going to dequeue off of the table a reusable cell with the identifier that we went ahead and registered. And I'm just going to return the cell, and let's just quickly set a text label text to hello world. And let's see, we're also going to want a header view for this table, and that's going to be where the user can see their profile picture and edit it. So we're going to say table view dot table header view is creates table header view, which will be a function which will return a UI view to be used as the header view. So in here, we're going to say let header is UI view. And we're going to give this a frame, actually. And this will be a CG rect 00 view dot width. And the height can be view dot height over, let's say over 3. That looks to be correct. Dot integral simply rounds up all the values to the nearest integer in case we're using a floating point there. We're going to return the header. Now in this header, we're going to want a UI button, and this button should show the current image of the user, the profile picture, and tapping it should allow the user to change their image. So we're going to call this profile photo button, and it's going to be a UI button frame. We're going to say CG rect. We'll do X and Y in a second. Width and height will be the same since it'll be a square. So let's say view dot width over 3. And actually what we probably want to do is we want to probably say something like header dot height, dot height over, let's say 1.5. That's probably more correct. And let me make this one property so we don't duplicate code. So we'll say here, let's just make this 0 and 0 so I can hit tab and it doesn't mess it up. We'll say that size. The X position is going to be view dot width minus size over 2. And this is going to be header dot height minus size over 2. Now we want to add this as a subview of the header. We also want to make this button circular. So we're going to clip the layer to mask it to bounds. And we're going to basically make this a circle by saying layer.corner radius is the size over 2. And of course, we want something to happen when the user taps on this. So we're going to say add target. Self for the target. Action is did tap profile photo button. The event is going to be touch up inside. And let me go ahead and create this function here. Make sure you annotate it Objective-C so it's visible to this selector business up here. And we also want to set an image. So for now, let's just set a background image. And we're just going to use one of the system images. And I believe person dot circle is one of the ones we can use for the normal state. And let's add a border to this guy. So we're going to say layer.border width is 1 and layer.border color. I think border color is the thing on here. Whoops, this should be a 1. That's why it's complaining. Border color is UI color secondary system background.cg color. And let's see, what else do we want? Go ahead and hit Command R. Let's see what we're working with so far. Let me also open up SF symbols and see what symbols are available to us. So SF symbols you can grab from Apple's developer website. It's totally free. And this is a good reference for images. So this is person.circle. I think there's person.fill also. I kind of like that one too. So let's see what this looks like over here. Edit. Oh, interesting. We don't even see it. And the reason is we should probably give the table view a frame. So we're going to override view did layout subviews, call super on it, and give it a frame. And that is the entirety of the current view. Go ahead and run that once more. And let's see what we're working with now. Whoops. All right, cool. So it's kind of large. Our height can probably be decreased, and we should probably make this white as well, the tint color of this. So I'm going to say on this button, I believe there's a tint color on here, and we're going to make that, instead of white, we're going to make it label, so it looks correct in dark mode as well. And I'm also going to change the height of this header view in its entirety. So right now we did view dot height over 3. We're going to say over, let's say 4. And let me also go ahead and start creating models for the various fields we're going to want down here. So let's go ahead and first make this final. And let's create a struct up here for edit profile form model. And every form model is going to have 2 properties in it. And the first one is going to be form field label. Or I guess we could just call it a label. Probably easier to do that. We're going to have a placeholder, which will also be a string. And I think that's all we really need. So let's go ahead and let's see, what else should we do? Let's also put a value on here. And the value will hold the current value of the field. So this will be a var since we want to be able to change it as the user types. So let's see how we're going to set this up. So let's create a private var here, and this will be models. And this is going to be a 2-dimensional array since we're going to have 2 sections on here. And we're going to call a function here, configure models. And let's create that down here. We're going to say func configure models, hit Command B, make sure that's still compiling. All right, so for number of sections down here, we're going to return models.count. For number of rows, we'll say models section.count since it is a 2-dimensional array. And in this guy, let's talk about what we want. So the first section is going to have 4 fields. And I'm looking at my phone here. So it's going to have name, username, website, and bio. So name, username, website, and bio. And the next section is going to be private information, which is going to be email, phone, and gender. So email, phone, and gender. And let's see if we can get away with doing this in the for loop. So let's create an array here of section 1 labels. And we're going to basically say it is name, username, and bio. And we're going to say for label in section 1 labels, we're going to create one of those models. So let model equals this edit model object. Label will be label. Placeholder will be enter label dot dot dot. And the value, I guess for now, what we can say for the value, let's just say nil. And let's come up here and make this optional. What we should do is when the user comes here, we should query from the database the current value and then use that. But since we are not checking that yet, we'll just say no. And let's line break that and align these. Let's see why that alignment looks off. Okay, so that's going to bother me. So we're not going to align them because it looks weird. So let's put this back on one line. And now we're going to say, let's see, we're going to say var section 1 is a array of this guy. So we're going to say section 1 append model. And we're going to say models append section 1. And we should be able to copy and paste this whole thing right here. Let's add a line break there to give us a little bit more room. Make this section 2. Make this section 2 as well. Section 2, section 2, and section 2. And let's change up the actual labels here. So email, phone, and gender. And let's see if we hit run. Well, actually, before we even do that, in cell for row, we want to pull the model out. So let's first say a model is going to be in our models, the element at the section position and the row position. And here we can say the text label is model dot label. So let's just do that for now. We're going to actually want text fields in each of these cells. So we're going to want a custom cell that we'll do next. So let's see what this looks like. Okay, looking good, looking good. So email, phone, and gender. We also want a section title here for each section and kind of dividing it so we know that it's different. So I believe there's another function called title for section is what we want. And it can return string optional. So we're going to say guard section. If section is 1, we can continue. And if it is the second section, aka position 1, we're going to return private information. And like I said, we're going to want a custom cell to be shown here. Let's see, why is this complaining? This should be else. We're going to want basically text fields in here, and we need to create a custom view to get that working. So we're going to come into view, and I am going to create a new file, and it is going to be a Cocoa Touch class. We're going to subclass a UI table view cell, and this is going to be a form table view cell. Makes it a little bit more reusable, and it will be in Swift, of course. Go ahead and create that. And in here, we're going to get rid of all of this business, and we're going to override the initializer for style and reuse identifier, call super init, pass in the style, and pass in the reuse identifier. We're going to first start by saying clips to bounds is true. And we are basically going to want 2 subviews on here. The first one is going to be a form label, which is our UI label. So let's create that in here. And we're going to return it. And let's see, label dot text color will be dot label. Label dot number of lines will be 1. What else? I think that's all we really need for the label. I guess we can change the font and stuff later. And we also want a text field. So we're going to say private let field is a UI text field. Fields is a UI text field. We're going to return said field. And we're going to say field.return key type is going to be done. And what else do we want on here? I think that's all we really want on here. So we want to add these as subviews now. So we're going to say content view, add subview, the form label, as well as the field. We're also going to want a way to get the value out of the field to our controller. So we're going to create a custom delegate in a second, but we want to say the field's delegate is self, and we want the cell to conform to UI text field delegate. And we're going to override the text field delegate function should return, and we're going to return true here. And you can leave that be for 2 seconds. And let's see, this is complaining because we want to also bring in the required initializers. So hit the error and hit fix, and it'll fix that for you. We also want to lay out our subviews. So we're going to say layout subviews, super.layout subviews, and we'll assign frames in here in a second. And we also want one public function to configure the cell with a model. And this is going to be our edit profile form model. And with this, we can say form label dot text is model dot label. We can say field dot placeholder, or sorry, is it field? Is that what I called it? Yep, field. We can say field dot placeholder is model dot placeholder, and field dot text is model dot value. And that does that. And we also want to set the frames, but in addition, every time the cell is reused, we want to prepare the cell to be used. So we want to override prepare for reuse, call super on it, and we basically are just going to reset all of these assignments we're doing here. So copy and paste that, and basically you can make all of these nil. That way we'll ensure that the prior cell's value is never accidentally used for the next one. And here we simply want to lay out the label and the field. So we're going to say label.frame or form label.frame is a CG rect with an XY width and height. And let's line break all of these before my OCD kicks in. So X we're going to say is 5, Y will say is 0. Height of this, we're going to say content view dot height. Width is going to be content view width, I guess divided by 3 we can do. And I think that should look decently good. And for the field, we're going to change this to field, and we're going to say X is going to be the form label.right plus 5. Y will be the same, content view.width. Interesting. So now the width we want to say is the width subtracting 10 for buffer, as well as subtracting the form label's width, and the height we can keep the same as well. So that should be good to go in that regard. Before we set up our custom delegate in here, let's go register this on our view controller and try using it. So we're back on our edit profile view controller, and here we're going to say on this table view, we're going to register this cell for this cell.identifier. It looks like we never created that. So let's create a static property on here, identifier, which is going to be of that type. And let's come back here and hit Command B. It should be compiling now. And in cell for row, instead of dequeuing a standard cell, we're going to say the cell is a cell with the identifier we just set up. Make sure to cast the cell as such. And here we're going to say cell.configure with a model. And we'll just pass in that model directly, getting rid of that guy. And go ahead and hit Command R, and let's see what it looks like. And we're just about at 20 minutes, and I'll probably sneak in the delegate stuff in here as well. So let's hit edit profile. All right, looking good, much better. This is private information as a footer. Did I override the footer one on accident? Title for footer, I totally did. So let's change this to be title for header. That's the one we want, title for header, and we can just paste that logic in there again. And on Instagram, you actually can't swipe this away. So let's go back to the settings view controller and where we're presenting this edit VC. Let's say on the navigation controller, we're gonna say modal presentation style is full screen. Hit Command R once more. Now we should get the primary background color and we won't be able to swipe it away. All right, looking much better, much, much better. We have the line down here. We can now tap into these and start typing. Now this table view cell is still selectable, which we of course don't want. So let's go back to our custom form cell. And in the initializer down here, we're gonna say selection style is none. And let's see, other than that, it looks pretty good. When we scroll on this, we want to get rid of the keyboard. We can, of course, press return and nothing really happens. So in the cell, in the function down here for the field, we're going to say, before we return true, text field, resign first responder. That'll get rid of the keyboard when the user hits return. And we also want to return the value to the view controller. So we're going to create a protocol on here. And this is simply going to be form table view cell delegate. And we're going to say did update field value. Or we can say, let's see, let's rename this more appropriately. So we can say form table view cell, and let's pass in a reference of the cell. Did update field value will be a string optional. And this is going to be any object. And that way we can put a property on here, which will be a public var, public weak var, so we don't cause a memory leak, a retention cycle. This will be an optional type of our delegate. And every time the user hits the return key on the field that they're editing, we're going to say delegate. And we're simply going to call that function. We're going to pass in self here. And here we're going to pass in text field dot text. And now what we can do is hit Command B to make sure it compiles. But in all seriousness, now what we can do is now on our edit profile view controller, if I can find it in here, there it is. Now in here, in the self row at index function, we can actually say cell.delegate is self, and it's going to complain because we have not conformed. So I'm going to create an extension down here since this file is getting larger. And we're going to conform to the form table view cell delegate. And this will complain we don't conform. Hit the error and hit fix. And now what we can say is, let's just print out what the new value is. So field updated to, and in here we're going to append the value. And it's optional. So if it's nil, we're going to just say nil. So go ahead and hit Command R. And now we should be able to get the value based on whatever the user has typed. So basically, let me expand this a little bit since we're going to print down here. And so we're going to start typing in, let's say, a bio. I'll use the bio that I have on my Instagram. So Kanye with a hint of humble. So let's go ahead and hit the return key or enter on your keyboard. And as you can see here, the field was updated to Kanye with a hint of humble, and the keyboard disappeared. So what we actually want to do in here is update the model, right? So what we should probably do, instead of passing the value, we should pass back an updated model. So let's say updated model, and let's make this the edit form fields model. So let's go back to, let's go back to the cell here, and let's change the type on this guy to be updated model, edit form field model. And we pass in the model in the configure function right here. So we can say self.model is model. Let's create a private type on here, and we'll make that model, and it's going to be optional when we start off. So like that, and hit command. Let's actually comment this out and hit command B, and it should be working. So in here, we're going to say guard let model is model, else we're going to return, make sure this is non-nil. And here we can say model, hit command B. All right, let's see what we have going on. So here we should return true. And before we actually return this model, what we're going to say is model.value, since we want to get the latest value, is going to be text field dot value. Whoops, text field dot text rather. And if we come back to our view controller here, in here we can now print out updated model dot value, or we can say nil. So let's see, updated model is optional. We don't want that to be optional, so we're going to do that. Hit command B. Looks like we've got an error here because we don't need this guy. Still got an error somewhere here. Let's see, it doesn't conform. Let's come back here and make sure this matches. So this should be non-optional as well. Looks like it compiles now, and let's run this one more time. So now we're passing back the model. So in this model, we can actually check which field was edited. And it's also cleaner than just using strings arbitrarily. So we can say here in name, let's say Joe Smith and hit enter. We can see we've got Joe Smith here. But now also in this updated model, we have things like labels. So we could actually now check which field was truly edited. And once the user hits save, we can actually update the database with all the various values. So right now in save, we're not actually saving, but what we should be doing is dismissing the current controller after saving. So let's just put the dismiss there. Let's see if we hit cancel. It should be dismissing. And I really wanted to get to the profile. So let's actually do a little bit of the profile before we wrap up, just because I'm a little excited to do it. So let's go to that profile. And if you recall, in the profile controller, we set up a collection view with the layout and stuff. So let me start by giving this guy a background color so we can actually see it. Whoops, not background view. We want background color. So I just want to make sure we can see it. And I want to, okay, so there it is. So we want a header up here. So we're going to want one section for the header where you see the profile picture and follower counts and all that good stuff. Another header for the tabbed UI, and then our images and our posts down here. So basically, we're going to want to create a bunch of custom views. So in here, under views, let's go ahead and create a folder called headers. And I'm going to call this collection view headers. Now under cell, we have for the feed, we have these home feed icons, but what we also want, rather home feed files, we also want another file for a generic image view cell. So we're gonna call this photo collection view cell. Go ahead and create that since we're gonna want that. And we are going to want a static property on here to register to our collection view. So add that. And let's see, what else are we gonna want? We're also gonna want, I guess we can override, instead of doing the initializer, I guess one thing we could override or just add as configure. I guess I'll save that for the next video since it's gonna get very long. But in the header, we're gonna want two kinds of headers in our collection view. So another class, and this is going to be UI collection reusable view. And the first one's going to be profile info collection view reusable view. Rather, I'll say profile info header, since you can actually use this for footers as well. No XIB, we're going to do it all in code. Go ahead and create that. And let's put that static identifier on here as well. And I'm going to be lazy. And actually, let's just do it the correct way. Let's create one more header. And we're going to call this one profile tabs collection reusable view. So create that. And if you're not familiar with what I plan on using this for, I think once you see it, it'll make more sense. But it's basically those little tab icons in between the user info at the top of a profile and your posts, where you can switch through posts in which you have posted or your tagged posts and things like that. So now what we can do is we can go back to our profile view controller, and in here, we want to register all those cells and all those things. So let's do that right here. So first up is the cell. We're going to want to register a cell class for reusable cell identifier. And this is going to be photo collection view cell.self. Identifier will be photo collection view cell.identifier. Now we want our two headers, which are going to be section headers. So we're going to say collection view, register, I believe it's supplementary view is what they call it. It'll be a view class, and the first one will be profile info, info header collection view reusable view. Supplementary view kind will be UI collection view element kind header. And the identifier will be this dot identifier. And let's actually be lazy and copy and paste this. Let's see why we have an error up here. Something's wrong. Hit Command B. Let's see. This should be dot self. That's why it's complaining. And let's copy and paste this because we want that other one as well. And this other one, I think I called it profile tabs collection view reusable view. This will also be a header. Now keep in mind, this is a header per section and not a header for the entire collection view. Hence, we can use it more than once. But the identifier we need to change to be that. Hit Command B. And let's see, why is it complaining? Does this one not have a identifier? Did I spell identifier wrong? Identifier. Looks like I did. All right, so now we've got these registered, so we should be able to use them on our actual, let's close my antivirus pop-up, on our actual table or collection view. So let's just quickly see what it looks like. So number of items, let's just say, I don't know, let's say like 30. And let's create a cell, which is going to be collection view. Let's a DQ, a reusable cell, which is going to be photo collection view cell, identifier, index path. We're going to hard cast it here. And let me just give this a background color just so we can see it. We'll say this is system blue. And let's return that cell. And I think we already set an item size somewhere here. Looks like we did. So let's run it and see if what that looks like and cross our fingers that it doesn't crash. All right, cool. So it definitely shows up. Looks like our 3-column layout is pretty messed up. So we're gonna focus on this profile UI next. As you can probably tell, the series is gonna be pretty long since I'm being pretty picky about things, but hopefully you guys like seeing the nitty-gritty process of all of it. So that's it. If you haven't destroyed the like button already, make sure to do so for that algorithm. Hit subscribe while you're at it for daily videos. Comment any errors, questions. If you don't understand something, if you just want to say hi, love hearing from you all. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.